the snowstorm wasn't in the forecast. Ava Grant had planned a quick mountain getaway. No overnight bag. Just her camera and the open road. But before she knew it, snow blanketed the highway and visibility dropped to nothing. She kept driving until a shape emerged through the blur. The Briarcliff Hotel. Stone walls. Iron gates. A flicker of yellow lights in the windows. She hadn't seen it on any map. Inside, the warmth felt too perfect. The air smelled like cedar and something vintage, maybe lavender. Behind the check-in desk stood a man in a burgundy suit. He looked up as she entered. "Checking in?" he asked. She nodded. "One night." He handed her a heavy brass key. "Room 313. End of the east hallway." Past the mirror. Ava glanced down the corridor and headed toward her room. The hallway stretched long and narrow. Old wallpaper. Flickering sconces. A large mirror stood halfway down. She passed room 310. 311. 312. Then the hallway ended. No room 313. Just a blank wall. She walked back and forth twice, scanning the area. Nothing. Back at the lobby, the same man stood behind the counter. "Excuse me," she said, holding up the key. "Where's room 313? He stared blankly. "We don't have a room 313. She held up the brass key again. "You gave me this 5 minutes ago." He didn't react. "Some guests," he finally said, "receive what they've asked for, even if they don't know they've asked." Ava stood again in the hallway, staring at the mirror. Her reflection looked slightly off, like the lighting was wrong or the glass warped. She leaned in closer. The key in her hand moved slightly, pulling forward, as if attracted to the surface. Then, without warning, the mirror rippled. Not a trick of the eye. The surface moved like water. She reached out, half expecting to hit glass, but her fingers passed through. Behind the mirror was a wooden door. Aged, with gleaming brass numbers. 313. Ava stepped through. The room inside looked pristine. A fireplace crackled softly. A vase of roses sat on the table, fresh and pink. The air smelled clean, too clean. An old guest book rested on a desk. It was already open. A pen lay beside it. She placed her bag on a chair, but the chair didn't move. No sound. No creak. It didn't even cast a shadow. Neither did the flowers. Only she did. She walked to the window. Outside wasn't snow. It was green hills and warm sunlight. Definitely not the weather outside. She turned toward the TV. It flickered on by itself. Grainy security footage filled the screen. It showed her. In the hallway. Walking toward the mirror. Again. And again. The same loop, from an angle that didn't make sense. She picked up the remote and turned it off. Then she noticed the guest book had flipped pages on its own. Her name was on the page. Ava Grant, January 3, 1993. She hadn't written it. And yet, the ink was still wet. Ava stepped back from the desk, the guest book still open behind her. She turned toward the mirror. This time, it was solid. Just glass. Her reflection moved as it should. But something about it still felt wrong. A few seconds later, she noticed the timing was slightly off. A blink that came too late. A head tilt that lagged. Then her reflection smiled. She hadn't. She spun around, nothing behind her. She faced the mirror again. Now it was normal. No lag. No smile. She walked toward the door. But the door was gone. Only the mirror remained. She placed her hand on it. Cold. Solid. Unmoving. No way out. Suddenly, the room dimmed. The fireplace flickered. The TV turned back on, this time with no static. A woman appeared on the screen. Black hair. Same build. Same eyes. It was Ava. But she looked older. Or maybe, worn. She was sitting in the same chair Ava had just used. Behind her, room 313 looked exactly the same. The video wasn't grainy. It was clear. Real time. Ava leaned closer to the screen. The woman looked straight at her. And whispered. "You're here too?" Ava's breath caught. The screen cut to black. Then the mirror behind her cracked. Just a single fracture running straight down the center. Ava didn't move. She backed away slowly and sat on the bed. But when she touched the sheets, they were cold. As if no one had slept in them for years. Ava stood from the bed and searched the room. The cracked mirror. The looping footage. Her name in the guest book. Everything felt placed. She opened the dresser. Empty. Checked under the bed. Just dust. She moved to the fireplace. The flames danced quietly. Above it, a small picture frame hung crooked. She straightened it, revealing a narrow crack in the wall. A loose panel. She pried it open with the brass key. Inside, folded neatly, was an old letter sealed in red wax. The envelope was blank. She broke the seal. The letter read, "If you're reading this, the room has chosen you. Don't believe what it shows. The mirror lies. The screen lies. They'll all try to wear your face." Ava's hands shook. She flipped the paper. One more line was scribbled in red ink. "There's another door. Not where it looks. Burn this before it's too late." She glanced at the fireplace. Was this a warning? Or a trick? She threw the letter into the flames. It curled and burned instantly. No smoke. Just gone. But then something shifted. The room's lighting changed. The shadows moved. And the mirror now reflected the back of her head, even when she turned. She looked behind her. Nothing there. The mirror still showed it. Something standing right behind her. Tall. Still. Watching. Ava didn't turn again. She closed her eyes. And whispered, "Where is the other door?" Ava stood frozen, eyes locked on the mirror that no longer reflected truth. The fireplace dimmed. The shadows now stretched across the ceiling. The air turned heavier. She took a deep breath, walked to the closet, and opened it. Just an empty space. No door. No passage. Then she heard it. Knocking. Not at the entrance. Behind the mirror. 3 soft knocks. She moved closer, whispering, "What do you want?" Silence. Then, from the TV, a voice. Hers. "You have to leave. Now." The screen went black. Ava stepped backward, eyes darting around the room. There had to be a way out. She noticed the floorboards near the bed, one of them slightly raised. She knelt down and pulled it loose. Below was a hatch. No handle. Just a keyhole. She pulled out the brass key. The one for room 313. It fit. The hatch clicked open, revealing a dark tunnel sloping downward. She hesitated. Then descended. The tunnel was narrow, lit only by small wall lamps. As she walked, whispers surrounded her. Too quiet to understand, too constant to ignore. Then the tunnel ended. A blank wall stood ahead. She touched it. It wasn't stone. It was soft. Breathing. She stepped back, but the hatch behind her had vanished. No going back. Then the wall split open. Light poured in. She shielded her eyes and stepped through. Suddenly, Ava stood in the hotel lobby again. Snow fell outside. The fire crackled. Everything looked unchanged. The man in the burgundy suit stood behind the desk, hands folded. She rushed toward him. "I'm leaving," she said, breathless. He looked at her with calm eyes. "Miss, are you sure you were ever here?" She opened her mouth, but paused. She looked down at her hands. No key. No bag. Just frost. She turned toward the entrance. Outside, the storm was gone. Only a clear road ahead. She walked out into the light. Behind her, the hotel faded. As if it had never existed. But from her coat pocket, a brass key glinted faintly. And if you want to know what happens when that key turns again, subscribe now. Because room 313 never really lets go, ***.